Hello again, my fellow Jeti users, and in this video we're going to look at using voice control to control some aspects. Now, Jeti user Simon writes that he has bad hands and would like to be able to use voice control to send the gear up or down or move the flaps if he's struggling to get to the switches. Now, Jeti's instruction manual does say that voice control is somewhat experimental, and you should not use it for any flight control that would give you problems controlling the model. They're really
Inactivity alarm.
They're really intending it for use instead of using a switch to get telemetry readouts, things like that. Indeed, if you go into function assignment or flight modes and try to assign voice control as a switch, they are not available, and there's a good reason for it. So is it safe to get it to move something like the gear? Well, quite possibly yes, because suppose it doesn't recognize gear up. You're going to fly around with the gear down. It's not a big problem. Shouldn't cause you any control issues. The snag would be if at the end of the flight you order gear down and it just doesn't recognize it and won't put the gear down. And Simon did say in his question he recognized that you still need a safety switch for this. So, yep, we can do that. Of course, the other problem you're going to have is I'm doing this in a fairly quiet workshop. There's a bit of background noise with rain on the roof because this is Britain, so it's raining. But at the airfield, there's an awful lot of noise going on, other people talking, so you might have much better results if you were to use a little headphone with a microphone rather than just trying to speak to the speaker, which is, a couple of feet away from your mouth with all the other background noise going on. If you have the Jeti 14 or the original Mark 116, you'll be wondering what on earth I'm talking about. They don't have voice control. The 24 does. I think the 12 and the new Mark II 16 have it, or at least have it as options. So anyway, let's go in and have a little look. What I've got is a basic model. It's got a gear function. The transmitter's automatically assigned control switch SI to it for the moment. We'll come back to that. So we go to advanced properties and create some voice commands. Go into here. The mode is push to talk. It defaults to. There's two ways of getting the transmitter to pay attention to your voice command. That is using a switch, which you switch on, which is what it means push to talk, and then it will listen to what you're saying, or use a key word like your phone might use hey whatever. I'm not going to say it because my phone will suddenly turn active and what are you up to, and Jeti suggests the push to talk using a spring switch. That's got to be far safer than using a key word, because at least you can guarantee the switch has moved. I mean, if it's struggling to hear your key word, you're getting nowhere. So push to talk switch, I've assigned the spring switch, SG. Right, let's come down. Voice 01. Let's call that gear up, shall we? So label it, just to save time, I won't type out all the G, I'll just put G up. Good motivational talk, that. And I'll create another one which will be G down. Okay. Incidentally, these, once you've created them, these voice files, they are globally available. They're available in every model. All it needs you to do in each individual model memory is change it from a cross to a tick to say it's enabled in that model memory. And then, of course, where you use them to do various things in that memory is up to you. But if you create another new model, those will be there available in voice commands for you. Okay, now we need to learn. So we'll enable it for the moment and learn. And what we have to do is speak the command 3 times. For the transmitter to pick it up. It will learn particularly your voice. So it will respond better to your voice than somebody else giving the commands in future because it's learned your voice. Anyway, what we do is we'll pull the switch, give it the voice that we want, release the switch, it'll beep at us to say it's sort of picked that up okay, and we'll do it 3 times. Okay, in we go. Push dot switch sensitivity. Yes, so as it says, assign the switch. We've done that. Push it, say the command, then we'll release it. The command will be saved after a beep. Repeat it for a better recognition rate. And so it'll come up 3 times and then it'll seem to be quite happy. And so this was the gear up. So off we go. Gear up. Gear up. Gear up. Okay, we've done it 3 times. It was okay 3 times. It seems happy enough that it's got it in some form of the transmitter can recognize. So we'll say okay to that one. Come down here, and in this model, we'll enable the gear down. So it's available. Learn it. Here we go again. Gear down. Gear down. Gear down. Seems to be okay. Lovely. Let's have a little look in this one. What this tells us is background noise levels going like that. These numbers, I'm not quite sure what it represents. The instructions say the lower the number, the better it has sort of got consistency between the samples. I'm not exactly sure what that's telling me. And if you press the graphing, it shows this, the noise level. I suspect that the green is a instantaneous live spectrum analyzer, low frequency to high frequency, and the height giving you the volume, and the red line just giving you a recent peak level. I think what we're getting there is the background noise of the rain. And then if I talk, of course, it boosts different frequencies. Okay, anyway. Right, we've got VO1 and VO2 available to use now. So we can come out of there. And as I mentioned before, if we go into model, functions assignment, down to here, into that, clear it out, voice is not there. And even if it was, we couldn't use it because if you assign a switch, it's one switch, it's 2 positions, but the voice file is simply there. So it'd be on, so it'd be gear up and that's it. You couldn't do anything more with it. So we'll come out of there, apply the changes, no. And we'll go to the logic switches. And what we'll do here is we'll call it G1, just for the sake of argument, because I'm going to use 2 of them. And it's going to be, gear up was voice 1, wasn't it? Yeah. Now here we do have voice commands in the menu. So there we go, gear up, okay to that. Come down to control 2, will be gear down. Okay, and the condition is going to be A on, B off. So when it hears gear up, it'll switch on, and when it hears gear down, it'll switch off. Let's try it. Let's pull the switch and say gear up. Gear up. There we go. Now when I say gear down, control 2 will briefly come on and it'll switch off. Gear down. There we go. Gear up. I'll try gear up again just to prove it doesn't cycle it to the off position. Gear up. Gear up. Doesn't matter how many times you do it, it won't go off until control 2, which is the gear down, is recognized. If I don't pull the switch, gear down, gear down. I'll pull the switch and release it without saying anything. Nope, you got to do both. Gear down. There we are. So what we could do now is go to the function assignment and simply assign this as the control, logic switch 1. But here's the snag. Remember, We're flying around. We tell it to go gear up. The gear goes up. Great. Come towards the end of the flight. You tell it gear down. And no matter how many times you try telling it, it just won't do it. For some reason, it's not hearing you properly, too much background noise, doesn't like it, whatever. Now you've got a major problem on your hands because you can't get the gear down. So we'll show how to fix that in a second. What I'm going to do is just prove it by coming out to Model, Functions Assignment, Gear, SI, clear that out, choose Logic Switch 1. And there we go. Let's have a look at the servos, who is gear servo 5. Okay. Gear up. There we go. Gear down. Gear up. Gear down. Lovely. Okay. So we've proved that at least the basic idea of the system works. So let's build in this safety mechanism. And I'm going to use the switch that I would normally use for my retracts. Back to Advanced Properties, Logic Switch 2. We'll call it G2. Enable that. Okay, Control 1, of course, is going to be Logic Switch 1. And basically what we're going to say is that the wheels can only be up if it's received both the command for gear up and the retract switch is in the up position. Okay, so we come down to here, retract switch is in the down position, move it to the up position, say OK, and the condition will be AND. Okay, now I'll use voice command to say gear up. Gear up. There we go. Fine. So gear down. Lovely. So the procedure would be that before you take off, yeah, you put, when you're free to move your hands all around if you're having trouble with your hands, you'd put the gear switch into the up position, but the gear will stay down because you haven't told it gear up. So you take off and you use the voice command, gear up. Lovely. Now, towards the end of the flight, you're telling it gear down, gear down, gear down, and it's not responding. Perhaps you forgot to move the switch. Perhaps there's too much background noise. Perhaps. How on earth are you going to get the gear down? Well, despite your hands, you're just going to have to find your way to that switch and move it down. And there we go. And it won't go back up again. Gear up, gear down. You're fine. Okay? And you can't get the gear to go back up again because that switch is in the down position. Gear up. See, that's gone up, but without both switches being there. So you might say, well, hang on, if you're using the retract switch anyway, why are you bothering with voice commands? Well, what we're doing is, as I said, before takeoff, we're switching the switch up. When you've got time to take your hands off the controls, move anything you want, like your switches, into position, boom. But the gear won't come up until you've done that voice command. And when you want to put the gear down, hopefully the voice command will work. But you do have that facility. If needs be, you can call somebody over or get your hands to it yourself and get that down. Okay, so let's say OK to that and go back to the function assignment because we now need to switch it to Logic Switch 2. Okay, let's have a look at the servo. Servo 5. I think we're in the down position. So operating the retract switch is making it go up and down. So we must have had the voice command in the up position. Yeah. So put gear down. There. Operating the retract switch has no effect. So you'd make sure when you switch on and everything that it's all in the gear down position, which it should be because the A on B off switch was using gear up as the on. So it will default when you switch on at the off position. And so until you've given it the gear up command, it won't go on, and therefore that switch will not work. Okay, so gear is down. We're about to go flying. Before we go flying, we can move our hands anywhere we want, put the gear up and switch into position. And we take off, gear up, there it goes. Gear down, oh, I didn't move the switch. Gear down, there we are. Gear up, gear down, gear up, and then, as I say, you're flying around and you're going gear down, gear down, gear down. For whatever reason it's not responding, then you can shuffle your hand around to the gear switch, get someone to help you, move it down, and there's your gear down. And if that's in the down position and you take off, gear down, I'm just resetting the switch there. Right, so you've forgotten to put the gear up switch. You go gear up, nothing's going to happen because you haven't switched the gear switch up. If you do it now, it will suddenly switch up. Because we've been doing gear up, the A on B off switch has gone positive. So there you are. Okie doke, have fun with that.